The Constitutional Court is set to rule tomorrow on whether President Jacob Zuma violated the Constitution and his oath of office by not repaying some of the money spent on his Nkandla home. Let's get a preview ahead of tomorrow's decision. Our reporter Karyn Maughan is outside the Constitutional Court in Johannesburg for us this evening. Hi there, Karyn. Let's tackle these issues that are going to be looked at one by one in court tomorrow, perhaps starting with this issue of pay back the money. What will the scope of the court's determination in that matter be?
Well, ultimately, there seemed to be quite a strong concession from President Jacob Zuma's lawyer that he would abide by the recommendations made by the public protector, which were essentially that the president consult with Treasury and with a member of the police about the appropriate amount to pay back. Now, we know that in court documents, he said that he would be prepared to consult with the Auditor General. It's really about the court making certain logistical arrangements or logistical requirements, saying this is how we want this amount, which tommorow described as a reasonable percentage of the amount spent on non-security upgrades. This is how we want that amount to be determined. This is how we expect the money to be paid back. And these are the kind of timeframes that we foresee. As I recall, during the hearing, Jeremy Gauntlet looking at anywhere between 30 days and 90 days for the period at which that amount would be paid back. But Joe, we know that it's not about the logistics of pay back the money. It's about how this court defines the president's failure up until now to pay back the money, whether the court will view that as a violation of the Constitution and a violation of the president's oath of office, which we understand will have potential political and legal repercussions for him.
Well, we know this is what opposition parties wanted to challenge the court to do, not just speak about how much money needs to be paid back and how he'll go about that, but whether he violated his executive powers in allowing the money to be spent in this manner.
Well, you know, it's kind of an interesting question, because up until the point that the appeal court ruled on the Karyn Maughan matter, which involved the public protector's office, the president and his government seemed to rely very heavily on this argument that, you know, these are recommendations. They don't amount to court orders. We don't have to follow them. We can sort of, you know, cobble together our own response. After the Karyn Maughan ruling, in which the appeal court said the only way you cannot abide by a public protector report is to review it in a court of law, the president was painted into a legal corner, and very cleverly he and his counsel agreed at the very last moment that they would pay back the money. So for me, if he had gone into this court and argued and resisted and sought to pursue this argument that these findings were not binding, the situation of the court's ruling tomorrow would be very different. The fact that he essentially acquiesced and said, yes, you know, I honor the public protector's recommendations, please just put in frame an order that would, you know, enable me to pay back the money in an appropriate manner, may in fact save him from having a finding made against him that he violated the Constitution. We really have to see how this court, it's 11 judges who are very capable of making multiple different decisions, come to weigh up the president's conduct up until that point and his conduct at the point that he made the determination that he would pay back the money.
How important is it going to be for the highest court in the land to clarify the public protector's powers once and for all tomorrow?
Well, essentially, she argues, and I think, you know, the president conceded in his own court papers that her powers have been clarified. I mean, essentially what the appeal court said in the Karyn Maughan ruling was not challenged specifically in relation to the public protector. The only part of that ruling that is currently being appealed is the appeal court's decision to order the suspension of Karyn Maughan, which, you know, is a kind of legal bone of contention, which he is challenging now in the seeking to challenge in the in the Constitutional Court. But that key issue of the public protector's remedial action has not been challenged, and the period at which it could be has essentially lapsed. So according to her and according to the president himself, her remedial action is binding, and only if you take that to another court of law and say, we believe her remedial action is irrational and we're challenging it and seeking a review of it, can you possibly hope to get out of doing what she has told you to do?
And finally, of course, there's the issue of impeachment. Legal analysts making it fairly clear to us the court is not in a position to impeach the president in terms of its powers. But that hasn't stopped the president's advocate, Jeremy Gauntlet, from suggesting to the court, if you like, that it shouldn't create the possible motivations, perhaps, for this to happen.
Well, you know, the big problem for government and for the ANC in particular is that off the judgment that Judge Chris Nicholson gave in 2009, it recalled President Thabo Mbeki. Remember, that was that very controversial finding, which was subsequently, Joanne, overturned by the appeal court, in which the judge found that there was an aspect of political conspiracy to the NPA's corruption case against Zuma, and that possibly Mbeki was involved. President Thabo Mbeki lost his job over that judgment. Now you have South Africa's highest court potentially making quite damaging findings about the president and his fundamental job in this particular country, which is to uphold the Constitution as the country's first citizen. If such a finding is made, yes, you know, it will be very difficult for anyone to say that he will therefore be impeached, because Parliament, with a 2/3 majority, will have to make that happen. The ANC will have to make that happen. But it will put the ruling party in somewhat of a difficult position, because based on the Mbeki precedent, if they fail to act against Zuma, and if there is such an adverse finding made against him, it will certainly raise questions about exactly what the party's motives were during that Mbeki situation and what its motives may be now.
Karyn Maughan, thanks very much for that very comprehensive explanation of what we can expect to come out of the Constitutional Court tomorrow morning. Remember, it happens at 10 o'clock and we're covering that live on the channel, so don't miss it.